I find myself lately in situations where people are asking things of me. And even if they benefit me, sometimes it's like I don't always feel compelled to say yes. And I have found that if I don't automatically want to say yes to something, then it's no. And it's no until I decide I want it to be yes. Sometimes you have to do things in your own time. Go with your gut. A lot of us sometimes feel obligated to say yes to others when we don't want to disappoint somebody or when we're being a people pleaser. But it's really important that the decisions you make are the right ones for you. Cawfee Talk. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Cawfee Talk with Tara Cannistraci. I hope you had a great start to your day. Hope you have your coffee in hand. Just a reminder, Cawfee Talk with Tara Cannistraci merch is up on my website at tarajokes.com, as well as my Bronx Barbie merch. My Bronx Barbie Tour has been announced for January, starting out January 9th in Charlotte, North Carolina. So excited about that show. And then I will be back in Niagara Falls the 23rd to the 25th. February, so many places you can see me. I'll be in DC, Jersey, Poughkeepsie, back in Niagara Falls again. And then I believe I'm in San Diego and Chandler, Arizona. Okay, that's all I'm going to say for now about that. What I wanted to say is I find myself lately in situations where people are asking things of me. And even if they benefit me, sometimes it's like I don't always feel compelled to say yes. And I have found that if I don't automatically want to say yes to something, then it's no. And it's no until I decide I want it to be yes. Sometimes you have to do things in your own time. Go with your gut, with how you feel about things. Listen, I am an indecisive person and sometimes too indecisive. And sometimes I procrastinate or it takes me too long to pull a trigger on a decision. But at the end of the day, I always end up doing it and I do it in my time. And I think a lot of us sometimes feel obligated to say yes to others when we don't want to disappoint somebody or when we're being a people pleaser. But it's really important that the decisions you make are the right ones for you. And I know that Venetia told me to be funny. But listen, here's the deal. Okay, there's a lot of pressure on me to be a lot of things all of the time. And when I'm out socially, sometimes I don't want to be funny. And because I'm a comedian, people think that I always have to be funny. Now listen, you guys come to this podcast, you come to my YouTube channel, probably because you've seen my stand-up, if you've seen a funny video I've done online. I started Cawfee Talk with Tara Cannistraci because I wanted it to be honest and real and funny whenever the moment should arise that I, find a moment to improvise or be funny, but it's not always the case. And as far as like the timing of things, like I said, very recently I talked on this podcast about deciding if I want to have kids or not. Now listen, I go into doctor's offices and they look at me like, well, bitch, your time is up. That ship sailed. But what they don't know when I go into these offices is that at 34 years old, I knew I didn't want children in my 30s. And I made a very big decision to freeze my eggs so that I had youthful eggs, healthier eggs for, of course, that's just science, than I would if I did today. And in fact, so I'll tell you guys something funny. See, something organically happened. That's funny, Venetia. On like one of my first dates with Mike, on my first date, not on the first date, I had told him that I froze my eggs. Now that was not to pitch him or anything. It was just because you guys know how my personality is. This is who I am. Take it, leave it, love it, whatever it is. This is me. And I didn't really know how the first date was going. I wasn't even sure if I was that into him. I definitely didn't think he was into me. And then the next, our date was on a Wednesday, and then that following Sunday was Mother's Day. And I'll never forget, he asked me, first of all, he asked me if I wanted to go to his brother's house. I'm like, no, because we've been on a first date and I don't want to meet your mother on Mother's Day, 4 days later. But he said, well, I'm going to come by your house and see you. when you get back from your mom's. And he came back to my house and hung out for a few hours, and then he left. And then the next day he's like, were you working on your laptop yesterday? And I was like, yeah, I was not working on my laptop. And he goes, you didn't find anything? And underneath my laptop, there was a Mother's Day card from my ex. Yes, he bought me a Mother's Day card from my ex at NYU. And in that moment, I was like, I don't really know if I like this guy that much, but that's very funny. And when you could match me in being a little crazy or funny like that, I was like, wow, I have a little bit of an appreciation for who this guy is, or, for his sense of humor at least. But again, that was something I did because I knew that my timeline was going to be different than anyone else's. And if you think I didn't get pressure from my mother or from my father or now from my mother-in-law on when are you going to have a baby? But when are you going to have a baby? And, oh, you're never even home now. You're on this tour. When are you going to have a baby? I'm going to have a baby. Hopefully I can still have a baby. Science and, health. People at 30 struggle to have kids, right? People could do it when they're younger and still not be able to do it, right? I'm hoping that I did enough to be afforded the opportunity to have a kid. But when people ask me things like, first of all, people are like, well, when are you going to have a baby? Well, I don't know. I'll tell you the next time my husband doesn't pull out. Like, whose business is that, right? Or my mother-in-law, they go, well, what are you doing about children? I'm just laying there, right? Ask your son what he's doing. No, I don't say those things out loud necessarily to people's faces, but I figured you guys would appreciate that here. Those are the things that go through my head. And I just realized that there's probably anybody listening to this podcast who's a parent is going to tell me, and this I do believe, there's never the right time. And I get that. Chaz has told me that before. He's like, it's never a right time to have kids. Just if you really want it, don't not do it. Because there's never going to be the right time. But I am the type of person who just has to have that inclination, that little feeling in her gut that I'm ready for something. Like I felt like I was ready to do this tour and headline it myself. I felt that I just really started getting comfortable in my own home, especially not being here so much. Like I have to feel settled. There's a part of me, maybe because I never felt settled as a child, single mom, bad stepfather, dad was an alcoholic. I never really had that like security and that stability and that that it just takes me a while to do things or to even commit. Like, yeah, maybe I got married and bought a house with somebody. That doesn't mean I'm in this forever, right? Because I got to really feel stable. I got to really feel like I could take the next level. And because I am a product of divorce, I'm not necessarily going to be like, okay, well, I'm just going to have a kid because this guy's great and I already have a home. There's a lot more that probably goes into that I need to talk about in therapy and on this podcast, because why not share everything with you guys? But there's a lot that it takes me to make a decision like that, because I may be an artist and they can be very self-consumed, but at the end of the day, every decision I make, I think about how it affects others. And I don't ever want my child to go through what I went through being a product of divorce. Now, listen, that's a topic for a whole other podcast. And I will say this, if you are in a marriage that does not serve you, I don't think staying just for children is ever the excuse, because those kids have to grow up in that house as well. But I know the other side of it, and how even though my parents tried to get along and they're still friends to this day, still made it difficult, right? So I want to avoid as much as I can causing that in someone else's life, disrupting somebody else's life like that, especially my own child. Anyway, like I said, a topic for another day. But at the end of this one, I want you to take away from this podcast that you have to do things in your own time. No matter what it is. It doesn't make a difference if you're indecisive. I can't tell you how long it takes me to book my flight. I have to be on a plane every other week at this point. And I still have to rationalize the times or what kind of plane it is or where I'm going to sit on the plane. So yeah, but I do it in my time. So like I said, if the answer isn't yes, then it's no until I'm ready to say yes. And I hope you guys take that away from this podcast. So many of you, I can tell from the beautiful messages you send me, are selfless people or serving people, are just good people. So, sometimes you fall victim to yourself. So keep that in mind. Another great thing to do for you is to come see me at a comedy show live. So like I said, all the shows are going to be listed at tarajokes.com. Merch is there, all my shows, ticket links, anything else you guys want from me. DM me, message me, tell me what you like about the podcast. Tell me what you don't like about the podcast. Remember, this is new for me. So your opinion really matters. Have a great day, everybody. Cawfee Talk.